Working hard to make a left, reach out a farm red. Father, son, left to carry on, blue denim, had his vein. He's a working class man.
And welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. So last Thursday, the professors of the Passhe universities here and colleges here in Pennsylvania took to the streets and said, hey, you know what? It's been almost 2 years. This contract should be done by now. We should be not having to be fighting about, talking about this. It should just be done. I mean, at some point, you got to go 2 years, enough already. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. There's a strike vote authorization, I guess, being taken. You just wonder why people can't come to the table and sit down and bargain in good faith, which is why I've asked Dr. Paul Quinn, physics professor at Kutztown University, to come talk to us about what's going on with their contract negotiation. Paul, thanks for taking time for me.
Hey, how you doing? It's a shame. I agree. I've listened to your intro, and it's a shame that we're still here talking about these negotiations because this should have been wrapped up a long time ago. For some reason, they continue to drag something on that shouldn't be dragged on. It's very simple. We just want what they gave all the other unions. And, instead of going forward and growing programs and teaching our classes and doing the things that we want to do, we got to be faced with the situation that we have now.
Yeah, part of me goes, this is an ideological battle. Because I look at the guy who's the chancellor and going, I guess, moving on to bigger and better things here very soon. I guess he's made a name for himself. How much of it do you think is this ideological battle? And do you think that if he leaves, things will change, or does the rest of the board seem to be as entrenched as he is?
I'm really not sure. It's really hard to read the landscape because what they're doing just doesn't make any sense. From the very beginning, it didn't make sense. I mean, if you really wanted to get this contract done, right? I mean, no one works well under this tension. Administrators don't, the faculty don't, the students don't. And the way they've stalled and taken their time and how really there's been no movement at all until, some flurries of stuff here and there. I mean, if I look at the situation, having been through, seen two other negotiation processes, the kind of negotiations that we're having now, we should have been having this 2 years ago, right? So the fact that we're doing this now just doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. As far as our contract goes, I mean, the compensation piece is really not what the issue is. So all this talk about saving money and, the professors are costing the students money for tuition, I mean, that's all done, right? We have the same thing that all the other unions got as far as that goes, right? We're arguing about issues, and I don't really understand other than they just want to privatize and destroy the state system. That's all I can conclude from the situation.
Because, when I look at this and some of the folks that I've talked to who are members of APSCUF, the one theme keeps popping up, these adjunct professors that they want to be able to do, I guess, whatever they want. And I look at this model that I see the future of education, not just in higher ed, but K through 12, this for-profit model where, the more you can pay, the easier it's going to be and big profits and not much for you and me.
No, I agree, but, they're just whittling down the quality. I mean, one of the beauties of our state system and this unionized environment has helped create is that you have a great education, right, that's affordable, and you have these great professors. I got so many colleagues I've gotten to know through the union, and it's these great professors that really want to be there and work with the students. Well, you keep going through, forget the package itself, even the hassle of having to go through this every 4 years. I got to argue for respect, right? We're people that are at the top of our field in what we do. I mean, what better for students to learn from? And to go through this process is very draining. It's going to get harder and harder to get people to come to the state system and stay.
Yeah, so let me ask you that, because, I've had this conversation with a number of teachers who are about, not just college professors, but K through 12 educators saying, you know what, I've just had enough. I've had enough of the obstruction. I've had enough of the factory mentality, and I'm just going to go somewhere else. And the question then is, what are we left with?
Well, you're going to be left with a very poor system that's pieced together with adjuncts. And I'm not saying that, all adjuncts are bad, but as an adjunct professor, you use it to build your career, then move forward and become full-time elsewhere, right? You don't have continuity for the students. You don't have people that are necessarily at the top of their field as much as, a full tenure professor that's invested in the institution. You don't have people that would care as much as care much about the institution as they would as if they were tenured and invested there, they're going to have a terrible system. And, they're constantly asking you to do more with less. But in this case, the money argument just doesn't fly. It's almost like it's about some kind of control. Like, one of the thoughts I've had is that we have this governor, right? Tom Corbett, who's really is an enemy of education in this state, is just got this upper hand, and no one wants to go against him and tell him that this attack on education has to stop. So these underlings that he has, they just march in line, and they're trying to gain this control because, again, the issues we're stuck on are not really monetary.
Yeah, I saw something about health care also, that the chancellor had brought up some claims about the health care that the faculty gets.
Yeah, and so they're claiming that the health care that we get, right, is going to bankrupt the system and all this other stuff. And, there's a couple responses to that. One is they didn't ask any of the other unions to make the concessions they're asking us to make, right? I mean, you look at APSCUF. Their health care didn't change much at all, right? So, and they're a big union in the state. And the chancellor also likes to go and say that he negotiated with the other unions. No, he didn't, right? I mean, he didn't. The governor did. And the governor said that those contracts were fair. So it's a mystery to me why the governor can say that those contracts are fair, but we have a chancellor who's now no longer going to be here is saying that our contract has to be different, right? So it's almost like you're picking on the faculty. And, I don't understand that.
Well, I mean, how much of it do you think is pitting not only you against APSCUF, but you against your members? Because if you could divide things up
absolutely, you divide and conquer. And what has to be clear is, one of the things that we're negotiating is the health care for retirees, right? So when you retire, you take your health care into retirement. They want to eliminate that. And, they use this argument that, the cost and basically what has happened is the state system has changed its accounting. So if the entire state system was to go away at once, right, and then you had to suddenly pay for everyone's health care that retired at once, sure, you'd have this huge liability. But that's not going to happen, right? And that's a almost impossible situation. So the fact that they use that to justify their budgets is terrible. But, what they want us to do is to give up this health care for retirees. But at what cost, right? You have to think about the future. I mean, what respect do people get that become professors, right? I mean, others won't think so, but I think that we're constantly having to argue that we deserve to be paid, right? We constantly have more rules and regulations and people that don't know education trying to control our curriculum, right? And now they want to go after your health care. And you know that as soon as they go after the health care for retirees in the future, why are people going to come here, right? You want to attract a good faculty and keep the system the way it's going to be. You have to have a fair contract, things that people are going to want to come for. I mean, it's not the money. You can go to a private college and make more.
Yeah, I seem to remember a right-wing argument about competition and incentives and meritocracy, and I seem to remember. So maybe you, as a college professor, would have a better idea of how it is you attract people. There's certain things that bring them, like healthcare, like decent wages, the respect that you're talking about. Yeah, I seem to remember them talking about something like that.
Yeah, they do, and and I don't know. It's funny because my parents were both in unionized environments. They were teachers in a K through 12 system, and they never got the respect they deserved either. I'm not sure how you get people to see it because there's things that we put up with here in the state system that you don't have to put up with necessarily the same manner at other colleges, right? And it's one of the things that you could say, I could go into, as a physics professor, I could go into industry and make double what I'm making. I mean, there's calls for engineers with all kinds of energy conservation, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm here because I like to work with these students. And, one of the things that keeps professors like us, at a place in the state system is the type of students we have. These students are fantastic, right? They're not these upper echelon, the sons and daughters of rich families. These are hardworking students. I have so many students in my classes that are first-generation college students, and when they're done with our program, I can put them against these upper echelons, supposedly, right? And my students come out on top. I mean, I've got students that have gone on for graduate work at places like UPenn and, Penn State and all these other schools that people, look up to. The type of students that we have, their work ethic is unmatched, and it's a shame that the governor wants to remove opportunities for these hardworking, a lot of them blue-collar family students, right, and destroy their opportunity to go and not only compete, but I would say that our students can best those other students that come from the more upper-class families.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I look at what this governor has said for almost day one, that it's not, not look at what we should privatize. It's look at what we're going to privatize, and it just looks to me that this is another thing on the chopping block, something for them to, to fire sale off.
Oh, it is. It's terrible. I mean, it's this whole. He has this whole attack on education, and one of the things I try to strive to the faculty members, they got to see the big picture. It's not just about our contract and how we're getting paid. Sometimes when you're so busy working with students, you can get myopic and not see the big picture. But this is about a general attack on education, and it stems from the top, the governor, right on down. They want to take this business model, which doesn't work, and they want to apply it to a situation where you can't just look at business models. You have to look at the people. They're not, products. They're people that you want to try to work because ultimately they'll become part of society and make it better.
Yeah, I see. I'm not a big fan of the commodification of education. To me, it's not a commodity. It's a common good. It's a societal good, and it's something that we should be fighting for. Because I'm of the mindset that that education is the hill we have to die on, because that is our democracy. That's what the nation, I believe, the fabric of this nation is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without education, what do you have? You have a bunch of sheep that follow these small elite that are in power, and they just do whatever they want to do. That's a terrible way to have things go.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. I mean, does it look like we're anywhere closer? I understand there's a strike authorization vote coming. Is there a strike imminent? Where's this going?
We had, let me just make sure, so the process, we had a strike authorization vote in the fall. The membership voted to allow the negotiations committee to call for the strike if they feel it's necessary.
Okay.
And we have a negotiations on February 1st, and that's going to be a big date because it depends what happens there. There's really, if there's movement and things are getting done and they schedule dates, or it would be great if it actually got done then, but I don't see that happening, right? But, you could have a whole change of tone. But if we keep getting this obstinate stonewalling where they're delaying and not making any progress and, nitpicking on stuff that's not the issue, it's going to head in that direction, and it's going to hurt everybody. I mean, I don't want to go on strike.
Nobody
I got better
does.
things to do. I want to teach. I want to do research. I want to help these students graduate. But, there comes a point where you got to stand up for what's right.
As I've always heard, there's only so much of what people are willing to eat.
You're right.
And here we are.
Yep.
So if this were to happen, I don't want you to give inside baseball stuff. Are you looking at during the school year? Are you looking at the summer?
I mean, if February 1st goes poorly, you never know when a strike could happen. But it puts it a hell of a lot closer. And if it's going to happen, I assure you, it'll be before summer.
Well, I hope that if anything, I hope it doesn't happen first and foremost, because having been on strike a couple of times in my life, not the perfect outcome.
No, it's not. It forever damages relationships. I mean, it's not. Nobody wins, right? But you got to stand up and say enough is enough.
Yep. But if it does come to that, we want you to come back and talk to us and keep us informed in the loop. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Dr. Quinn, thanks so much. Quick break, right back. 1-888-520-RICK, 1-888-520-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show.